Hey, it's Court. Listen, before we get into today's episode, if you want to get free access to my brand new podcast SEO mini course that is going to help you get your podcast showing up in the top 5 in search on Apple and on Spotify, then all you have to do is enter our Dare to Share giveaway that we are doing here as we count down to episode 350, which is crazy. It's so hard to believe that we have had that many episodes here on the podcast, but I'm doing this as my way of saying thank you for being here every single week and for making this show possible. So all you have to do to enter, super easy. Either text the show to a friend of yours who is about to launch a podcast or who is podcasting right now and let them know, hey, you need to be listening to this show, or leave a written review on Apple Podcasts telling me how this show has helped you. Either way, pick your poison. Take a screenshot when you do it though, and email it with your name to podcast@podlaunchhq.com so that I can feature you in an upcoming episode and say thank you. Because truly, this show would not exist were it not for you being here every single week, listening to the show, supporting the show, and encouraging me to keep going with my own podcasting journey. So thank you for being here. And with that, here's today's episode. If you're someone who has ever sent an email out to your email list announcing a new podcast episode, hoping that it drives new traffic to your podcast, only to go and refresh your stats and realizing that it's given you absolutely no new downloads at all, you're not alone. And this episode is for you. I have got top 10 podcaster and marketing expert Jay Schwedelson back in the studio with me to break down why this happens. Why is it that when you send that new episode announcement email to your list, nobody seems to care? He's going to show you what to say in your email subject line and how to format your emails so that people actually open and read them, and most importantly, so that they click through and listen to your podcast. So if you want to turn both your podcast and your email list into tools that actually grow each other, buckle up and grab a pen, because Jay has all the answers, and I promise you, this is going to be an episode that you're going to want to come back to again and again and again. Welcome to Insider Secrets to a Top 100 podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Elmer. Let's make your business binge-worthy. Jay, welcome back.
Yeah, excited to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Well, for those of you listening who heard the previous episode, you know that Jay delivers. We dove into LinkedIn. We were so tactical, really like giving you the nitty-gritty of what you need to be doing to promote your podcast and reach your ideal listeners on LinkedIn. Jay, I want to talk to you about email marketing because, first of all, you are a guru at this. And secondly, this is something that so many people struggle with. So I want to have like the do this, not that conversation with you about how podcasters should be approaching email marketing. Because a lot of people I hear, like, I share it to my list, I email that I have a new episode, and literally nothing happens. My podcast is not growing. Can you settle the debate for us and break down the difference between using email to build a relationship with your audience versus treating it like a shortcut to increase downloads on your podcast? How should podcasters be looking at email marketing in the context of their podcast marketing strategy?
First of all, your email list is the most valuable asset in your business. No one will be able to tell me otherwise. It just is. It's just a matter of how you are using it. The reality of what we do with our podcast and email is that we think people care that we released a new episode. Hey, new episode is out. Check it out. Nobody cares, okay? They're going about their day. What they might care about is the thing that's going to be shared in that episode. And so you have to get away from promoting the format of your content. And in this scenario, the format of your content is your podcast. What you need to be putting front and center is what is in it for me, the person that you want to have listen to it. So let's say in my world, I talk about a lot of marketing tips. Okay, so let's say in this week's episode, I was going to talk about, call to action buttons. And the one tip you need to know about call to action buttons. When we send out our email, that subject line is going to say the 2 call to action button tips you need to know. It's not going to say I got a new episode. It's not going to say check out, we just released. Who cares? Then they're going to open it up. Okay. And it's going to say one hero stat, 37% of people that do this, blah, blah, blah. You want to hear more from this? Check this out. We just released the episode. And in my case, what helps out a lot, my episodes happen to be short. Not everybody's are short. And we say this episode's only 9 minutes. Go check it out. We manage the expectation. We tell them exactly what they're going to get. We give them an appetizer of what it's going to be. And even if they never click on it, they never listen to the episode, they're still getting value from that email. And so they know every time they open one of our emails, they don't have to click and go listen. We're not giving them everything that's in the episode, but they're going to have value in there. You need to give people a reason to open. And it's not because you're excited that you made a new podcast episode. Nobody actually cares.
It's so true, Jay. And I feel like I harp on this all the time where it's like you have to train people that you are the type of person who gives value everywhere you show up. And if all you're doing is spamming your social media feeds and your email newsletter list with your podcast, and by spamming, I mean just saying, hey, new episode dropped, go listen, and there's nothing of value in the post itself or in the email itself, then what you're actually doing is training people not to pay attention to you.
Totally right. You are sending out a negative signal. People don't realize that with email and all content in general. When people don't engage with your stuff, they don't click, they don't do whatever, you're like, oh, it didn't do well. No, you actually may be hurting yourself by creating a negative signal because in the person's brain, they're like, I'm never going to look at this stuff again. So you need to be intentional about what is in it for the person, not what's in it for you.
Yes. Okay. So on the flip side of that, sometimes what I see, Jay, is people will send what they think is a lot of value, let's say in an email, using this example, and then they'll kind of give everything away in the email. And now there's no reason to listen to the episode either. So what do you recommend for people to discern what nugget should you be pulling out of the episode to then share as a kind of an arrow to point back to, hey, now go listen because there's more value in the episode?
Yeah, first of all, you want to lead with your best thing. People think, "Ooh, I'm going to save that for in the episode because I don't want to give out my best thing, whatever." No, whatever you got in your episode, that is the greatest thing that somebody said or that you said or whatever. That's interesting. So you want to put that nugget in your email and say, "You want more? There's more of this stuff in there. Go check this out." But the other thing that you want to think about is the email itself. People just get word vomit, right? You open up the email and there's just words. There's just a lot of words. Okay. And you're like thinking that they're going to read all these words. Like, oh my God, these words are so compelling. I must click on this link. I must go listen to this episode. That is literally not what happens. When you get a text from a friend, and if there's a big block of text from that friend, you're like, I do not have time for this. I will read this later. That is drama. Okay. And you put it off to the side. When someone opens up one of your emails and they see a big block of text and you're going on and on about who knows whatever, it is visually boring. They're not reading it. They're not your friend or relative. They're just never looking at it again. So you want to think about, the white space in your emails. Hero stat, nothing with more than 3 lines of text in any block. Doing things like this says, 8-minute episode or 2-minute read or whatever. Think about the experience and not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it.
Jay, it's so true because look at your own user behavior. Look at your own habits. When you get an email full of like this whole thing to read, the subject might be really compelling and you might go, I really want to read that. I have a newsletter list of over 400 emails of things that I really want to read. And they're sitting in that folder. And I don't know when I'm ever going to have time to go back and read 400 emails of things that I thought were interesting but didn't have time for in the moment.
Never. Literally never.
Literally never. Never. Yeah. So talk to me about your podcast to email funnel. What does that look like? Are you using your podcast to drive traffic to your list? And then obviously you're sharing about your podcast on your list to help people go back to the podcast. So kind of creating this little email podcast ecosystem here. Can you walk us through what that looks like on the flip side of that, getting people from your podcast onto your list?
Yeah. So during our podcast episodes, what the call to action at the end usually is for people to go and register for our virtual conferences and our virtual events. So at the end we say, go sign up. We're running out of time or whatever. And then when they sign up for any of our virtual events, they then will also then go into a funnel where they're getting information about our podcast episodes. It is this one giant loop. And then in all of our different emails that we send out, because we have a bunch of different newsletters, different stuff, we're always linking and saying, hey, by the way, there's an episode here that you should check out. We also have websites that lead to our podcast that very intentionally built. So for example, we have a website called subjectline.com. And the way it works is it's a tool. You can go there and test your subject line before you send out an email. It's free. And after somebody tests their subject line and it tells them if it's good or bad, it says, hey, by the way, we also just did an episode on subject lines on our podcast. Check it out. Click here. And we get massive amount of traffic because we have that tool. I'm a big believer in creating something that is always on, that is helping to drive traffic to your podcast. So having some kind of tool that speaks to exactly what your podcast is about, and then they go through that tool, they have a good experience and says, hey, by the way, you want more of this, go here. it's important to have an always on program. I know that that's not email specific, but we do that as well.
That is really interesting. So, all right. So I have a couple questions I want to ask you. One of the things, Jay, that I think a lot of people think about when they're trying to convert a listener to a email list subscriber is, let me offer a freebie on my podcast. What I notice is that a lot of people go really narrow with those freebies, where it's either very specific to that one episode, or it kind of takes the person deeper, but it's really just focusing in on like one specific thing, versus what you're doing, which is almost taking them broader, taking them up to the next step. And this is what I recommend doing too, where it's like, when I'm promoting something on my podcast, we have two things we promote. It's either hop on a call with us and let's show you a demo of Pod Launch and what it can do for your show, or come to my next live workshop. For someone who is like, okay, I don't know what freebie to offer. I don't know what thing to offer. I don't host events. I don't really know where to lead people. Can you give them some ideas of helping them kind of think like beyond the podcast? What is the natural next step for your listeners to take?
So people overthink how to build their lists. It's not as hard as you think, and they overthink content. So you need a piece of content and something that's easy to create. And what you want to do is, whatever sector you're in, what is the biggest pain point? You can literally go to ChatGPT and say, what are the 10 biggest pain points in my sector? You put it in whatever. Great. Okay. Now, let's say in my world, in the marketing world, let's say in email marketing world, it's how do I get my email opened, right? Okay, great. You make a one-page PDF, the 7 biggest tips to getting your email open that you need to know. Okay, it's a one-page PDF and it's free and whatever. It takes 5 seconds. It's not about how great the content is. It should be great, whatever. It's about the name of the content, the name of your content, the actual title of that content piece, what gets people excited. And then you ride that piece of content everywhere. You don't just promote it at the end of your podcast. You do pop-ups on your website saying, hey, you want 7 tips to getting your emails open? Give us your email address here, okay? And you get people to give it to you every time they come to your website. Every time you have a call with anybody, on every single week when you have calls with people saying, hey, I would love to add you to my email list. I'd love to send you this piece of content. You don't end a call, a conference call, a meeting, a Zoom without asking somebody, can I add you to my list? Can I send you this thing? You DM it to people. Hey, do you want this piece of content on Instagram? Go to this form, fill it out here. Every day, if you're not growing your list, it is shrinking, and it's not hard to do. And people think it costs money. It doesn't. It costs energy, and you have that energy.
Yeah. Jay, I'm curious too, thinking back to the very beginning of your journey, because you have so much knowledge on marketing and you've come such a long way. I mean, you've got Andy Cohen and Nicole Kidman coming to your events and all these amazing people and, really big names. You've grown your network through the years. But on the front side of that, when you were just starting out, did you ever have a fear or concern of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to share my stuff because I don't want to spam people. I don't want to bother people. Did that ever cross your mind? Because I hear this from listeners all the time where they're like, either they don't know what to share, or I have some things I want to share, but I really just want people to listen to my podcast. I don't want to be bothering them with all of this stuff. The actual act of sharing that is difficult. If you ever experienced that, or if you've worked with clients and people who have, what's the shift that needs to happen there so that those who are having that fear right now or that concern about bothering people or I'm afraid to share it can share their stuff with confidence and show up as that top host and as that top thought leader?
Yeah. So first of all, you should be transparent and share everything. Okay. Because that is how you build confidence in people wanting to interact with you. But you want to share not just, okay, I know all this cool stuff, but you also want to share the stuff that's not working to be as relatable as humanly possible. You share, listen, I tried this thing and it's not working. The number one form of content right now that works better on any platform anywhere is building in public. That is it. That's what we are all consuming. Where you're like, okay, hey, I'm starting a YouTube channel. I don't know anything about it. I'm going to take you through my journey. I'm going to let you know how it's going. Oh, I just tried this. It didn't work. I'm now trying this. When you can show people that you're vulnerable like that, that is what we get excited about. My number one episodes, it's so funny. The episodes that get the highest listenership are what are called hate mail. And what I do every few months, I take emails that people send me that are the meanest emails people tell me to die. People say, you have no idea what people write to me. It is wild. Okay. And then I take all the ones that are absolutely the wildest and I read them. And that's the episode I release. I call it hate mail and I love it. And it gets more listeners than anything else that I do. I think people just like people being mean to me. But that is how you build that connection with people, is being more relatable and real. So share it all.
So good. All right. So when it comes to email marketing for podcasters, what kind of results should they be shooting for? What kind of expectations should they have from converting people from their podcast onto their email list, and from, I'm going to use the word growing very loosely here, but growing their podcast because of their email list and this ecosystem that we're talking about? What should they really expect?
Well, the first thing you want to do is listen to nobody, and do not go out there and be like, I need to find out the industry averages for whatever. Let me find out what other people are doing. What are the open rates that they get? What are the click-through rates that they get? What are the downloads that they get from the blah, blah, blah? And you go to ChatGPT and you ask people and whatever. Meaningless. Who cares about anybody else? It's not your brand. It's not your database. It's not your offer. It's not your content. Who cares? You always want to, when it comes to email marketing, you want to be thinking of yourself like you're a swimmer. When you're a swimmer, you are trying to beat your own time every time you get in the pool. And that is exactly what you need to do. You want to take your emails, you want to bucket them. Okay, I have a newsletter email send. My newsletters are over here. I have my podcast promotion email. That's over here. I have some sort of transactional emails over here. You bucket them. And then you want to create benchmarks. Say, okay, my average open rate, click-through rate, whatever rate on my newsletter sends is this. On my podcast promotions, it's this. And now when you hit send, what are you doing every time you hit send to try to beat yourself? What am I going to do in that subject line to get that open rate higher? How am I changing the words on my call to action button to increase my click-through rate? What am I doing to beat myself? Those are the only metrics that matter. Is, are you getting better? Are you moving in the right direction?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you bring this up, because it's so true in podcasting too. Because there's no apples to apples comparisons. No two businesses are alike. I don't care if you have an online business and someone else has an online business. Those businesses are not going to look the same. They're not serving the same audience. They don't have the same offer. It's all going to be unique. And so the more that you can let go of what others are saying you should do. I mean, it's one thing to listen and learn from people, right? You're going to pick stuff up. You're listening to this podcast right now because you want to grow a top podcast. And chances are, if you find value in the show and you listen to the show, there are things that you're picking up that you can apply. That's all good and fine. And also, at the end of the day, you want to remember that you're the host of your show. You're the owner of your business. And part of becoming that top host is stepping fully into that role and taking full responsibility for that and learning how to discern, how to make decisions, how to call the shots. And it's a learning process. It's a learning curve for all of us, but it's something that's so needed and that we all have to step up to the plate to be able to do. So I'm so glad you reminded us of this. Jay, for email marketing, anything else that we haven't touched on as email marketing relates to podcasting that you think would be helpful for listeners to know?
Yeah, I mean, just because I love subject lines, I just want to give a little bit about focusing on getting the email opened. Too often we think about what's inside the email. What are we writing? What are the images? Blah, 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 whatever. But if you don't get your email opened, who cares what's in your email? And there are little things that you could do in your subject line when you're trying to promote that podcast that will be a game changer in the number of people that are opening up your emails. So if I could leave you with anything, I would say your subject line, the most important thing is the first few characters. Nobody actually reads the whole subject line. We see it in all the data. And the first character, the first word, the first two words that you write in your subject line are so important because you need to grab that attention when people do the social scroll in their inbox. So for example, if you start your subject line with a number, an actual number, your open rate, the percentage of people opening up your email will go up by about 20%. So if you say something like the 4 things you need to know about whatever, the 3 diet trends that nobody's talking about, an actual number, it's authoritative, people know what they're getting out of it, and it ties right into whatever your podcast is going to be about. Or if you capitalize the first word or 2 words, not just the first letter, but just released, and you capitalize literally every letter in just released, it catches their eye and it increases open rate significantly. And you don't go to the junk folder because of the word free. You don't go to the junk folder because you capitalize on the subject line. You don't go to the junk folder because you use an emoji. It used to be the case 10 years ago, and I don't care what people say online. Spam trigger words are not something you need to worry about anymore. So liberate yourself and use that subject line to really get people to open so they finally do check out your podcast. So in our newsletter, we're sharing all sorts of other regular information. We also like to do digest newsletters where we're sharing links to other things. And a lot of people moving in that direction as well. I know a lot of your listeners probably listen to Amy Porterfield as well. She just migrated her newsletter to a personal newsletter format, very similar to what I do as well. And she's linking to other articles, other things in a digest format that she's finding interesting. And that's an easy way to provide really great content, as if you're almost like a clipping service where you're saying, hey, this is what I'm checking out. People love that. not hard to do. So more is better. People think they send out too much email. It's not true. Really, believe it or not, you're probably not sending out enough email, which is weird to say. Frequency and relevancy are married together. If you're sending out relevant, great stuff, you could email me every single day. It's only that people are sending out garbage that are sending out too much. So think about formats that you can send out, be a part of people's lives in their inbox, and that's when you get that overall engagement to rise.
Yeah. And before you start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, I got to send out an email every day, what do I need to be doing? Go back to what Jay said originally, which is keep it short. As few words as possible, deliver quick value, and just seek to always be helpful, and really kind of thinking back to, at the end of the day, why do we podcast? Because we want to be seen as thought leaders. We want to build trust. We want to shorten the sales cycle. There's a lot of reasons, but authority and credibility is a big one of those. And so if you want people to trust you, you have to be the person that they know they can rely on, and that when you show up, wherever you're showing up, in their inbox, on their social feed, in their ears, that you are the person that can deliver what they're looking for.
Agree.
Jay, thank you for being here today. This has been awesome.
I love this show. Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping a lot of people, myself included. So thanks for having me.
I love tactical episodes like this one, and hopefully you took a lot of notes and you got a lot out of it. And here's my challenge to you. Walking away from this episode, don't just let this information sink in and then do nothing with it. Actually pick one thing that you can take action on. One simple thing. Maybe it's adding a number to the start of your subject line to help you get more opens on your emails and track that open rate over the course of the next 2, 4, 6 emails that you send to see if it has any improvement. It's little tweaks and little testing over time that helps us to optimize our workflows, to optimize our processes, and more importantly, to show up as that top podcast host. And mastery takes time. So in every episode that you listen to on this podcast, my hope is that you walk away with a lot of things that you could implement, but that you choose one thing to actually implement. Because it's not just listening to the episode and getting the content that's valuable, it's actually seeing a result when you implement that. And speaking of giving value, you've probably heard before that you should be giving away your best stuff for free in every episode. Some episodes are going to be more tactical than others. People often recommend, you got to put so much value in your episodes to get people coming back for more. But where is the line between giving away enough so that listeners do come back to your podcast, but not so much that they don't need to hire you? That's the exact listener question that I'm answering next, because whether you have a business behind the podcast or you're turning your podcast into a business, ultimately your show needs to be positioned to do its job of moving people to action. So stay right where you are, because in the next episode, I'm going to show you how to do it. That's all coming up next to help you make your business binge-worthy.